Open quotes. In you, Lord, I have taken refuge. Let me never be put to shame. Deliver me in your righteousness. Turn your ear to me. Come quickly to my rescue. Be my rock of refuge, a strong fortress to save me. Since you are my rock and my fortress, for the sake of your name, lead and guide me. Keep me free from the trap that is set for me, for you are my refuge. Into your hands I commit my spirit. Deliver me, Lord, my faithful God. I hate those who cling to worthless idols. As for me, I trust in the Lord. I will be glad and rejoice in your love, for you saw my affliction and knew the anguish of my soul. You have not given me into the hands of the enemy, but have set my feet in a spacious place. Be merciful to me, Lord, for I am in distress. My eyes grow weak with sorrow, my soul and body with grief. My life is consumed by anguish, and my years by groaning. My strength fails because of my affliction, and my bones grow weak. Because of all my enemies, I am the utter contempt of my neighbors and an object of dread to my closest friends. Those who see me on the street flee from me. I am forgotten as though I were dead. I have become like broken pottery. For I hear many whispering, terror on every side. They conspire against me and plot to take my life. But I trust in you, Lord. I say, you are my God. My times are in your hands. Deliver me from the hands of my enemies, from those who pursue me. Let your face shine on your servant. Save me in your unfailing love. Let me not be put to shame, Lord, for I have cried out to you. But let the wicked be put to shame and be silent in the realm of the dead. Let their lying lips be silenced, for with pride and contempt they speak arrogantly against the righteous. How abundant are the good things that you have stored up for those who fear you, that you bestow in the sight of all on those who take refuge in you. In the shelter of your presence, you hide them from all human intrigues. You keep them safe in your dwelling from accusing tongues. Praise be to the Lord, for he showed me the wonders of his love when I was in a city under siege. In my alarm I said, I am cut off from your sight. Yet you heard my cry for mercy when I called to you for help. Love the Lord, all his faithful people. The Lord preserves those who are true to him, but the proud he pays back in full. Be strong and take heart, all you who hope in the Lord. Close quotes. Introduction. Faith in God during times of desperation. Psalm 31 stands out as a profound expression of trust and surrender. David's words reflect both vulnerability and confidence in God's ability to save, even in the most challenging moments. This psalm explores themes of refuge, deliverance, and ultimate faith as David places his spirit into God's hands. In times of despair, confusion, and affliction, David's prayer in Psalm 31 becomes an inspiring example of how to commit oneself to God's faithfulness. In the following reflection, we will explore the key verses and themes of Psalm 31, delving into the assurance found in surrendering our lives to the one who holds all power and love. 1. Seeking refuge in God's righteousness, verses 1 to 2. David opens Psalm 31 with a plea for God's intervention. In you, Lord, I have taken refuge. Let me never be put to shame. Deliver me in your righteousness. This opening statement not only reveals David's trust in God's protection, but also his dependence on God's righteousness for deliverance. David isn't just asking for safety. He's asking to be saved by the righteous nature of God himself. Turning to God as our refuge means acknowledging that he alone possesses the power to protect and uplift us. In life's moments of desperation, we can follow David's example by seeking God's help, not because of our own worthiness, but because of God's unchanging righteousness. 2. Committing the Spirit to God's faithful hands, verse 5. One of the most profound moments in Psalm 31 occurs in verse 5, where David says, Into your hands I commit my spirit. Deliver me, Lord, my faithful God. This line resonates deeply as a surrender of control, entrusting everything, his very life, to God. It's a powerful statement of faith, a willingness to place his spirit, his fears, and his future into God's hands. By committing his spirit to God, David models a profound trust that extends beyond earthly fears and uncertainties. This phrase reappears in the New Testament when Jesus, in his final moments on the cross, echoes these words. Jesus' use of David's words signifies that even in death, complete trust in God's faithfulness leads to eternal peace. As we face life's hardships, committing our spirit to God is a reminder that he is always there to hold and deliver us. 3. God's compassion amidst suffering, verses 7 to 8. David's confidence in God's love is beautifully expressed in verses 7 and 8. I will be glad and rejoice in your love, for you saw my affliction and knew the anguish of my soul. These verses underscore God's attentiveness to human suffering. David recognizes that God not only sees his suffering, but understands it deeply. In times of pain, it is comforting to remember that God sees and understands our anguish. He does not ignore or dismiss our feelings, but offers compassion and relief. David's expression of gladness is a reminder that we too can find joy and strength in God's love, knowing He is aware of our struggles and cares deeply for us. 4. Trusting God through distress, verses 9 to 10. David continues by detailing the weight of his distress. Be merciful to me, Lord, for I am in distress. My eyes grow weak with sorrow, my soul and body with grief. These verses reveal the depth of David's suffering, both emotionally and physically. David does not shy away from expressing his pain to God, demonstrating that God welcomes our honesty. When we bring our struggles to God, we don't need to pretend to be strong. Psalm 31 encourages us to be open and transparent, presenting our real selves to God. David's example shows that God's mercy is available to those who call on Him, even in moments of profound sorrow. Facing fear with faith, verses 11 to 13. David shares the intense fear and isolation he feels due to his enemies. I am forgotten as though I were dead. I have become like broken pottery. He expresses how people around him have abandoned him and how he feels shattered by his circumstances. Despite his despair, David holds on to his faith, even as his enemies seem to gain power. These verses remind us that in times when we feel isolated or overwhelmed, we are not alone. God is always near. David's steadfast trust in God's faithfulness despite his enemies exemplifies a resilient faith that withstands fear and abandonment. 6. Declaring faith and deliverance, verses 4 to 16. In verse 14, David proclaims, "But I trust in you, Lord. I say, you are my God." Amidst his suffering, he chooses faith over fear, declaring God as his ultimate authority. This statement of faith is central to Psalm 31, encapsulating the heart of David's relationship with God. He continues, "My times are in your hands," acknowledging that his future is secure in God's control. When we place our lives in God's hands, we recognize that He holds the power to guide us through any challenge. David's words encourage us to let go of our own attempts at control and to rest in God's timing and sovereignty. 7. The abundant goodness of God, verse 19. David shifts from a cry for help to a declaration of God's goodness. How abundant are the good things that you have stored up for those who fear you. Here, he acknowledges that God's blessings are not limited by earthly suffering. God has stored up blessings for those who trust in Him, meaning that even in difficult seasons, there is hope. David's focus on God's goodness reminds us that our present trials do not define our future. The blessings of God are everlasting and extend beyond our current pain. By keeping our focus on God's goodness, we can maintain hope in the midst of suffering. Conclusion. A call to faith and courage, verses 23 to 24. Psalm 31 concludes with a powerful exhortation. Love the Lord, all His faithful people. The Lord preserves those who are true to Him. David encourages all believers to love God and to trust in His preservation. He acknowledges that life is full of challenges, but assures us that God's faithfulness is unwavering. David's final call to be strong and take heart reminds us to find courage in God's promises. As we deliver our spirits into God's faithful hands, we find hope, strength, and peace that transcends any earthly suffering. In God's hands, our spirits are safe and our lives are secure in His eternal care.